It's time to talk sports, it's time for the show. When you hear this song on the radio, it's time to tune in, better act fast. Let me get that Potograph. Potograph, Sports Talk Radio. Starting now.
Let's go! What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 114 of Let Me Get That Potograph, and our first on the iHeartMedia Spreaker platform. Could not be happier to be joining this awesome group of podcasters. As you guys know, John Newman from Sports Card Nation's also a part of the team, so they know how to pick them, that's all I can say. But y'all, for our very first episode on our Spreaker platform, we have an awesome show for you today. As Leighton Sheldon, owner of Just Collect and Vintage Breaks, drops back by. Always a pleasure when he stops by, and we've got a lot to talk about. He's more in tune with the higher end market than most people are, so a lot to talk to him about today. You're not going to want to miss that interview. That I can absolutely promise you. But before we get into everything, I do want to just go over a couple of things, because with the move to Spreaker, we've had some questions, a lot of questions, and I want to get some of those answered and kind of let you know a couple of things that are changing in regards to the show. Now, the show will still be able to be found on iTunes. You don't have to resubscribe or anything like that. But if you listen to it on SoundCloud, from now on, SoundCloud will have the latest couple of episodes, maybe between 3 and 5 episodes or so, but not the entire back catalog. However, going to the Spreaker platform is just like SoundCloud. You type in the web address, you click the link that I'm going to provide in all of the posts, and it's going to send you right there. You click play, it plays, and then you can go about your business. You can close the windows, you can do whatever you want, and it'll continue to play, just like every other podcast. So it won't, if anything, it'll give you more opportunities to listen to the show, more platforms to listen to the show, I should say. And it's just going to give you that, it's going to make it that much easier for you to have access to the show. So really looking forward to it. They've got a lot of stuff planned in the future. This is going to be a massive year for Let Me Get That Potograph, but one thing that is changing in regards to the actual Let Me Get That Potograph podcast, and it's something that lasted 113 episodes, but let her rip. We are now pulling Let Her Rip from Let Me Get That Potograph, but it's not going away. So I know a lot of you have loved Let Her Rip. It is not going away. What we're going to do instead is we're going to turn it into a video and audio standalone show, a spin-off, if you will, of Let Me Get That Potograph. The last couple episodes, we haven't been able to dedicate the proper amount of time that these releases deserve with Let Her Rip, because the episodes have gotten so long, and some of the interviews have gone more in depth, and to be quite honest, there's a lot I want to talk about, and I have to cut it short and really can't give my full opinion, because we've got to fit Let Her Rip in there without making the episode 2.5 hours long and you guys not want to listen to it. So we're moving Let Her Rip. It'll no longer be on Let Me Get That Potograph. We will still talk about products, of course, all the time, but it will not be under the Let Her Rip banner, at least under Let Me Get That Potograph. However, the show Let Her Rip will be coming out soon, and get ready for Let Her Rip, because the video show, we are going to be busting boxes. We're locking down deals with a couple of different companies right now. Right now, I can tell you for a fact, Leaf is in, and a couple other companies are jumping on board as well. So we're going to be having products that they're going to be sending us that are just coming out, and we're going to be reviewing them like we always do. We may find an old box every now and then and do an old school one like we always do, you know. Who knows what we'll be opening, but a lot of it'll be new stuff, and I'll be doing it with Texas card dude Brad Bethune, who does Hobby Hotline with me. He'll be my producer and co-host, so to speak. He'll be handling a lot of the graphics and stuff as I rip through the boxes and we go through everything. But this way we can give you guys the proper... we can give the boxes the proper respect that they deserve, and you guys get a better chance of seeing Letter Rip. You can still listen to it, but if you're watching the show and listening to the show immediately after it's done, you have a chance to win some of the cards that we pull. So, I mean, if we pull some of these, if we open up a box and we hit $200, $300, $400 cards, there's a chance you could end up winning that card. Now, some of this stuff will be going towards keeping Letter Rip afloat. Others will be going towards charities such as Signature for Soldiers, and others will be just straight giveaways to you guys. So we could not be more thrilled about starting Letter Rip. I know it's kind of an end of an era here on Let Me Get That Potograph, but Letter Rip's finally going to have its own standalone show, and it's not going to be part of the actual Let Me Get That Potograph anymore. But other than that, everything is exactly the same. The show that you guys have listened and hopefully grown to love, it's going to continue. It's not changing whatsoever. Outside of Letter Rip moving, it's going to be the same type of show it's always been, just on a new network that's going to give us much more exposure, which, you know, ultimately is what we want. All right, y'all, but we're going to move on now because last week's episode, of course, I talked about Gary V and Vegas Dave and their little feud. Well, of course, Vegas Dave had to take it up a notch this week, and if you didn't listen to last week's episode, maybe now you finally realize that he's a complete and total effing moron. I mean, the dude is just... it's absolutely pathetic. If you're unaware of what I'm talking about this week, Vegas Dave has been saying that the market is going to crash in the next, he says it's going to be basically crashing this year. And so what does he do to try and stay relevant? He goes and takes a bunch of 89 Fleer, nice cards, like Magic Johnson's, really nice stuff in the sets. And he lights them on fire and lights money on fire as well to prove a point that he thinks this stuff's going to blow up. Now, I went over all this stuff last week, guys, so I'm not going to go into exactly what we talked about. But, guys, stop listening to this fool. Seriously, if you have any questions about his gambling and his percentages, he hits about 23% tops. He's terrible at it. His gambling is terrible when it comes to sports betting. He knows nothing about the card industry. Vegas Dave is a complete and utter total joke. It's no different than anybody out on the street that's heard of a Michael Jordan rookie card giving you their opinion. That's what Vegas Dave is, and that's what Vegas Dave is doing. Stop listening to it. I mean, he's a genius because he knows he can do this, and there's so many people that are frustrated with the hobby that they're just going to jump right on board and just believe anything he says without, actually sitting back and thinking and looking at both sides of the equation and doing just a little bit of research. People that are very smart people that are friends on my Facebook that I consider brilliant people. It just blows my mind how they just jump on this Vegas Dave bandwagon, and I'm not going to get into it too more, but Vegas Dave pushing it again, still trying to push. He's honestly, it's plain as day what he's doing now. He's moved his Trout card. His Derek Carr collection is next to nothing, so he's probably going to move it as soon as he possibly can and just take that massive, massive loss that he hit, especially when John Gruden trades for a quarterback and screws up this entire offseason. I mean, I've been saying it for a month now, but it's going to happen. But I mean, it's plain as day what he's doing. He's trying to get a good subsection of people to get behind him to say that the hobby is just over. If you can't look at this hobby right now and see that it's not near over, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Forget about the massive cards that are record-breaking stuff and all of that. Look at the low end. Look at the mid end. Look at the second year. Look at the third year. Look at the 8th year for some players. The market has never been stronger. Is it going to last forever? Like I said last week, no. But to say that it's going to just die in 12 to 24 months, I mean, that's literally like me having a dartboard with different amounts of months on it and having Jude, my little 5-year-old son, throw darts at it, and wherever it hits, that's what we believe. I mean, it's a complete and total joke, and it's sad how many people want to believe this stupid fool. Like, I just can't believe it. Now, full disclosure, I am reaching out again to have him on the show to see if he will actually debate me. Maybe now that we're with Spreaker and iHeartMedia, we can actually get that done. But chances are he's going to want to control every single question like he always does. But Vegas Dave, guys, stop listening to him. He is an absolute and total fool who has absolutely zero knowledge when it comes to this hobby. I mean, the dumb blanket statement he wrote, I mean, if the prospect market drops 20% because they don't play as much, then technically his statement is right. That's the type of bullshit that he does. So don't fall for it. Think for yourself. Do research. Don't just get angry and say, oh, a Jordan hit this price, so obviously that means the market's going to crash. They have nothing to do with each other. Do some research. Get involved. And then you'll see just how absolutely ridiculous Vegas Dave is. But yeah, we're going to move on now because there's one other thing I really wanted to touch on, and, you know, it just dropped really right here, right before this episode dropped, but a mysterious Twitter account popped up out of nowhere that's entitled Pro Sets Back, and just like it says, it shows a photo of what looks to be a professionally done Pro Set card, and it looks to be, I mean, it's one of Trevor Lawrence. I don't know exactly how or if these are even real, but if they are real, I don't know what type of license or anything like that they'd be able to get or anything like that. But this has caused quite a stir because Pro Set, for those of you that are younger, might not remember this set, but it was one of the most iconic sets in the world, made famous by the Santa Claus autograph. And I would hope they would put that in this as well, you know, if they decide to do it. But Pro Set, it looks like it may be coming back. Like, there's been no indication on what company. No, it's not a reprint. It's not some ACAO card where people are just trying to make you spend $500 on a facsimile Patrick Mahomes autograph so you can try and trick someone and scam someone later. Like this looks like a legit card. and I am over the moon with this. Pro Set was one of my all-time favorite sets. And with all the technology today, with chromium stock, with parallels that you can do even on paper stock, I mean, Pro Set could be something incredibly special if it comes back. So we don't know who's behind this. I've tried to trace it back to where the IP address came from and all that stuff. Tried to figure all this out. Have not been able to figure it out yet. But it does look like Pro Set is coming back to the hobby. And for those of you that have never gotten a chance to experience Pro Set, go on eBay, type it in, take a look. It's an incredible set. And then go take a look at the Trevor Lawrence and you'll see how they blended the old school and the modern. Whoever did this mock-up is brilliant, and I mean, it's just absolutely beautiful. I have a few theories, and I hope I'm right with one of these theories, but if Pro Set truly is back, wow, it just looks absolutely beautiful. And welcome back, everybody, to Let Me Get That Potograph. And on the line, a very familiar guest and one of my favorite to have on. You guys know him as the owner of Just Collect and, of course, Vintage Breaks, Mr. Leighton Sheldon. Leighton, thanks so much for coming back on the show, man.
Hey, what's up, Drew? Thanks again for having me. You know, it's funny. I see you have, like, your little name, your moniker there is the DH. And I put Lee just because I was lazy to, like, type out my name. And I should have put L Train.
There you go. I agree. I would have loved it. Well, we'll put it up L Train anyway, you know. But anyway, so glad to have you on, man. I really wanted to have you on right now because we're in a crazy, crazy time in this hobby. It's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life. I thought when we were at the National 2 years ago, I thought what we were seeing was incredible. I thought when Gary Vee first got into the hobby, so to speak, I thought that was incredible. But what we've seen obviously through COVID, but even now as people get back to their regular lives, what you're seeing now is even more of an increase and just the hobby going crazy. And I know you're very, very in tune, obviously, with Just Collect and Vintage Breaks with the hobby on a daily basis. When you look at the hobby right now, what do you think of it?
I mean, I think it's out of control. I never see anything like it. You know, Drew, I know we're joking, but you know, all kidding aside, I'm really grateful to be able to call this whatever you want to call it, right? The industry, the hobby, a hybrid of that, you know, we're able to make a living doing something that we love. You know, it's incredible to see the amount of interest that's in the space. And, you know, it's very exciting.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. I mean, for a long time now, it was modern cards were getting all the love. You were seeing all the Lukas, all the Zions, but there was a lot of stuff like, I mean, even Jordan, for example, wasn't getting, you know, full love. But lately, you've seen a massive rush in the influx of vintage cards. Now, vintage has always had that market, and they've always had some major high sales, but you're seeing cards now. I look at the Tony Gwynn rookie, a card that I've always thought was undervalued, but has skyrocketed lately. And you look at the Larry Birds, you know, other cards like that. What do you attribute that to? Because for the longest time, it seemed vintage, you know, it kind of stayed steady, but it never really had those astronomical jumps. It was kind of like gradual jumps from what I saw, and now they're just skyrocketing like everything else. What do you attribute that to as someone who's so in tune with the vintage market?
Well, great question, Drew. I think what's going on is, aside from the folks that have been around, we'll call them the OGs of the hobby and the industry, meaning collectors, dealers, you know, investors, etc. All the new folks that are now coming in, whether it be in the last few months to the last few years, because you said in 2018, Drew, things started to look up. Certainly not even like the way it is now.
No.
But nonetheless, people started to migrate over. And so I think what happens in any industry, and I've talked about this, I believe with you before, or Gilmore, and definitely at length on other podcasts, is that what happens is in any general discipline, any general industry, I believe that people covet the best. In other words, if you collect automobiles, you're ultimately going to want to get the best convertible or the best the best. So if you collect art, not that you can own the Mona Lisa, but you're going to want, a Da Vinci. You're going to want, something by a top artist that's really rare and desirable. And that's just human nature, Drew. Like, we always want the best.
Absolutely.
So I think what's going on is that whether it be you've made a little money or a lot of money on the Lucas and the Treys and the Zions of the world, or for that matter, you bought in too late and you're just like, I'm not happy with what's going on. The reality of vintage is finite supply.
Yes.
And even as the demand needle moves a little bit, it's really messing up prices, meaning they're going up. And when I say messing up, some people use that term because they're like, oh my God, I had plans to buy this Walter Payton rookie. Do you know I almost had a diaper problem when I looked at my Walter Payton 9? And I'm like, because the guy's like, do you know what that's worth? And I go to him, $5,000. He goes, no. It's going for like 12 or 15,000. And I'm not saying it's warranted. I'm just saying that that's what it's going for.
Yeah.
And so, that's what happens, Drew, ultimately when people migrate into a space. So if it was Pokemon, if it was art, if it was cards, I generally believe people covet the best. And I think that's what's happening now, slowly but surely. And obviously, at this point, it seems like a little bit of a quicker rate. However, I also think that there's still room for, whether it be you're an investor or you're a collector, to not necessarily pay those exorbitant prices, but look for other opportunities, within, let's say, the space of Michael Jordan, if you collect him, and say, hey, you know what? I don't need to own his rookie. I'd really like just to own a really desirable, cool insert. Or I'm going to go after a Fleer metal base of him. Or for that matter, just talk about vintage, right? I can't afford a Mantle rookie, 51 Bowman or 52 Tops. Guess what? 53 Bowman color Mantle, one of the nicest cards in the world. You can still buy a 2-3-ish card for under $2,000.
Exactly.
And to be fair, right? Like, do you want that or a Luka 10 Prism? I'm not saying which is right or wrong.
Right.
But like, for every Luka Prism 10 you have, or 10 of them, you might only have a couple Mantle Bowman colors. So I think that's what's happening to people, Drew, is they're realizing that if they want to migrate and others are going to migrate too, it's kind of like a race against time.
Yes.
Because the supply is finite once again. And as demand continuously goes up, sometimes a little bit, sometimes a little bit more, like a hockey stick, the prices, like, they know no bounds. I mean, I shake my head. The things that it's out of control.
Yeah, no, it completely is. And there's a bunch of points you just touched on right there that I really want to expand on a little bit. But one that caught my ear immediately is you mentioned talking about art and talking about Mona Lisa and stuff like that. And the way I'm looking at this is we've got now a lot of people, whether they be my age, a little older, your age and everything, and they're finally, a lot of those guys are the hedge fund owners, the people that are able to collect all of this, millionaires, stuff like that can collect this type of stuff. And it almost seems to me like this is a movement towards, I already consider cards an asset class, but it seems to me that this is moving towards kind of like the art of our generation. I see more people, I know people are still collecting art a lot, and I pay attention to what they sell for, but it seems to me that this generation prefers the cards and the sports and the players, the stuff they grew up idolizing and looking at, and are kind of treating that as the art of this era.
Great point, Drew. I think that at least, from where you and I sit, there's no question that it's very real what's happening. And, you may look back in 5 to 20 years from now and say, wow, I really wish I bought. I've seen this term on Instagram and other social media platforms. I'm buying these and it's almost like it's free. And I don't really like when people use that terminology, meaning like, hey, it's just so cheap, it's practically free. Yeah, because you don't know what other people do for a living, what they do to earn their money, and how hard it is to get just $100. But absolutely, just because things have gone up a lot doesn't mean there's not opportunity.
Right.
But I can tell you, as someone who not just buys and sells a lot, but also like specs a lot and has fun doing research, I mean, Drew, when I go down the rabbit hole, like doing research, sometimes it's hours for me.
Oh yeah.
Of looking at the marketplace, looking at data, seeing what's out there currently in the marketplace, and that's how I handle that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think a perfect example of that is with Michael Jordan right now. You mentioned, people not being, I mean, obviously most people are priced out of Jordan now, but you look at his 90 Fleer now. It's skyrocketed, and I think that's because there's that group of people that say, hey, if I can't own this one, well, this is still criminally underrated for a second, such a close year Jordan, such an early year Jordan, and it's such an iconic pose and everything. I mean, I thought it was undervalued for years, and I think that's a perfect example of what you're talking about, people chasing after that next one. And I think that's something we're going to see a lot this year. And that's why I'm not surprised when I see these other cards of other players start to really skyrocket. Like, I look at Mookie Betts, someone whose cards, his tops has gone up, I think, like 500% in the last 2 weeks. And now all of a sudden you start to see his Bowman start to move because people can't get the tops anymore. And so I really think that's something that we're going to see this year as this market continues to strengthen.
I agree with you, Drew.
Yeah, so, moving on now, just a couple more questions, and then I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Vintage Breaks and the awesome stuff that you guys have got going on. But, we're, like we've been talking about the whole time, we're in a time in the market where it's just unlike any other. It's something we've never seen before, and it shows no signs of slowing down anytime soon whatsoever, only picking up steam. When you're looking at everything out there right now, what are some cards, as someone that you, like myself, like you just said, you go down those rabbit holes of hours of research. A lot of time we're doing that research together or talking back and forth and then it sends me down the rabbit hole when you started as well. When you're looking at that stuff, what do you, for everyone out there, that says, everything's just too high, there's nothing out there, what are some things that, what are some cards, maybe some player, maybe not necessarily a card, but a player, anything that you think is, a good buyer, you think is someone that, has some potential to move?
Sure. It's a great question, Drew. I'm going to tackle that first, and then I wanted to add something to that at the end, if I may.
Of course.
So, obviously, gang, I'm not sure who's going to watch this, whatever point later on. I'm very sensitive that not everyone's on the same budget. So understand, I'm going to rattle off a few cards and then a few players. And so, to me, buy the best example you can afford.
Right.
But I get that you may not even be able to enter that. And that's why I was going to close with, one item at the end and then add something to it. So, Drew, this is a list I actually sent someone earlier today. Shout out to my buddy Ryan. It's short and sweet. It's only baseball, so it does not tackle football, basketball, hockey, non-sport, etc. And to be fair, many people might say, Leighton, duh, it's pretty obvious. But these are things that I think still have room to grow based on what I've seen in the market and are still iconic cards of iconic players. And once again, I would buy the best I could in terms of condition for the amount of money that I had to budget. But I do think it's okay to buy like a one of these cards or a two.
Right. And let's be honest, if they were blatantly obvious, they'd be worth what they should be worth. So it's not that obvious.
Yeah, sure. So, the first thing is check out early Jackie Robinson cards. And, for example, even though you were talking about modern, kind of like similar to your Mookie Betts example, but focusing on, for example, Jackie. So, like, yes, his 48 leaf is out of control. His 49 Bowman's out of control. Do you know I bought his 1950 Bowman card several times over in the last year? And, of course, now I look like a genius. And, Julie, I love you, honey. That's my wife. She says, well, why didn't you buy 10 of them? Well, of course. Why didn't I buy 10 of them?
I didn't want you to be mad at me, honey.
Yeah, listen, it's always easy to play Monday morning quarterback, especially on Monday. And so that's the first. And what I mean is anything from 1950 Bowman to his 53 tops, to his 54 tops, 56 tops, etc. And one in particular I really like, and for full disclosure, I do have several of these, but not enough that's going to make a difference. Right. His exhibit from 1947-1966, I believe, is sorely undervalued and eventually will be $1,000 plus card. And And so, that card right now on eBay, you can buy a VG example of it for $100. Wow. I think one day that'll be 500. It might even be 1,000. Because I just think what we're talking about, Drew, people are going to migrate from the 48 Leaf, from the 49 Bowman. Was it produced in 47? What time? So it's not as rookie, but it was produced early enough where people are excited about the card. And I just think that's kind of like a unique, spot to put a little bit of money into if you don't have big budget. Of course, 1933 Gowdy Ruth. Right now, ones and authentics of decent, eye appeal are selling $5,000 to $6,000. So I get it that it's a real investment. So if that's for you, great. I would say if you can stretch it. I looked this morning, there was an SGC2 for $8,000. So you can see how, think about it. For 5,000 or 6,000, Drew, you enter the market, but yet for only a few thousand more, you get that next level. You got to really look at that as an investor / collector. Yep. So, that I think is great. 1953 Topps Mantle in the last 4 weeks has gone up a lot. I knew it was going to ride the coattails of the 52. So for full disclosure, I do have a few of those. Nice. But once again, you can buy one of that for a few grand. Right. Is it going to be 10 grand one day? I don't think so. At the same time, I didn't think a lot of the stuff that was going on. So my point is it's an iconic card. It really is more of a piece of art than anything. Every single one of the cards, for those listeners that don't know, check out the 1953 Top Set. Every single card is based on a real drawing that someone did. And I mean, they're phenomenal cards to see. And they don't always have to be high grade to be beautiful. They can just be nicely centered with good color. They're great pickups. Always, of course, the T206 Ty Cobb, any pose from the T206 set. Even though the Honus Wagner is the most valuable and probably the most famous, you and I aren't buying one, right? Most people aren't buying one. So just get yourself an 06 Cobb in the best grade you can, put it away for 10 years. You won't be upset. The last thing I wanted to close with, because I understand that some of the cards you just said, Drew, are 1,000, 5,000, 8,000.
Right.
So here's the thing. I run Vintage Breaks. I have a lot of fun doing it. Check out our website at vintagebreaks.com. Believe me, by me saying this is not helping me. You'll see what I mean in a minute. I and a lot of other breakers open up a lot of wax. Yes. Vintage Breaks in particular opens up more vintage wax than almost everyone put together, of course. But that being said, my point is, Drew, if you're someone who's in the modern hobby, you probably know more than me. And if you're really in the know, even if you don't buy into a single break, the one thing that you could find out from watching all the other breakers, modern, you're going to find out what product is hot. You're going to find out what's desirable, probably a lot sooner than everyone else will. So if you know that, go out and buy the retail version of that product and start putting it away. Undoubtedly, what happens is kind of like the way we're talking about mantles. If the hobby version of that product goes up and shoots through the roof, like Prism Football Hobby or Prism Basketball Hobby, what do you think happens to hanger boxes? Exactly. By the way, thanks again, Uncle Drew. I'm still sitting on those Prism hanger boxes.
I got you, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's kind of like my short synopsis on what I recommend. Yeah. But then I wanted to give a really cool tip. I was going to save it for Leighton's Loft podcast, Drew, but I know how much we enjoy jiving, and I thought I thought that this original thought people would dig, and it's going to play really well over and over for people that are taking the time and have got to the 18th minute of this video and said, "Wow, I guess this guy is not Vince Vaughn; he's Billy Vaughn." I'm not Vince, by the way. I'm really not, but I am his brother Billy. It's a whole thing. We'll talk about it. Oh
man, that agent lied to me. All right, we got problems now.
I know. You have to get your money back, right?
Yeah, but so no, I love it.
What I wanted to close with is this. So listen, keep your head on straight, always looking up. So for example, 1990 Marvel got hot, right?
Yeah.
I was fortunate. I bought a bunch of boxes in the last 18 months because I just really liked it. I didn't buy it because I thought I was a genius. If I did, I would have bought, believe me, more. And then my wife would have a new kitchen, or who knows, right? So the point is, though, once the boxes started going up, Drew, I'm literally going like this to myself. Oy vey, I should have bought so much more. Right. But then I got lucky again. I caught a little lightning in a bottle again. So now I have the boxes, right? I think I have 11 boxes. I opened one for grading. Right. And so the other 10, I figure I'm going to sell off most. And I'll probably keep, one for me. I'll put one away for Kaz, whatever the case is. Yeah. So here's the deal. As those issues are going up, especially that are newly going up. So in other words, Jackie Robinson's no secret, right?
Right.
But 1990 Marvel was stagnant for the longest of time.
Oh, forever.
Right?
Forever.
So guess what? When the wax started going up and I was, like this, and I couldn't believe I should have bought more. I'm like, wait a minute. I wonder what the sets are doing. So what I did was I started looking on eBay at the sets and the lots of first series only. Now, of course, I love the holograms, but I also know people already valued them. So when you include the holograms, the price per card went up a lot. Drew, I must have bought 25 first series sets and probably like a few thousand loose cards. And although I know they're not all going to be gradable, this is the tip that I want to share with everyone. Understand, gang, these cards are from 1990. The people who have these, they didn't likely play with them. You can see from the image, if they look somewhat newish, they're probably somewhat newish.
Right.
So lo and behold, when I started getting them in, I wasn't surprised when I'm like, oh, this is gradable. Yep, I'm going to be able to go through this for 9+. And so I'm making this up. Let's say Fortnite got hot tomorrow. The boxes, right? First series. And I know there's like a little bit more interest than there was a year ago, but let's just say they get hot. Well, if you're priced out of the box of a product, I'm not saying, once again, not Prism Basketball, because Prism Basketball was screened from the moment it was issued. See what I'm saying here, Drew?
Right.
It's about an issue that gets hot that wasn't necessarily screened for grading when it first came out or since. And lo and behold, you can get really clean cards in. And so I got a lot of cards in. I mean, I can tell you what I was paying. I was paying $200 to $150 to $300, depending on if they included the holograms or not. So let's just use $200. There's how many cards are in that Marvel set, Drew? 66, or is it more than that? I don't remember.
80, I believe.
80? So let's just say I was like, all right, I'm into these cards for, let's say a couple of bucks a unit. But yet, if I bought a box for $3,000 and there's 360 cards in it, I'm talking, $7, $8, $10 a card.
Yeah.
So you're paying a lot less. And because these cards really, they're not that old and they weren't really played with, I just literally bought them on eBay. Anyone else could have bought them. So that's my tip, Drew, is if you see something coming down the pike in sports or non-sports, and it's a set from 1998 or 2001 or 1990, and you're like, wow, I see the stuff going nuts, but the sets are still affordable. Buy them because someone else will.
No, that's some incredible advice from someone who, guys, if you're not familiar with Mr. Sheldon, someone who has been in this hobby since he was a kid. This is a man who knows what he's talking about and has been around the block quite a bit. I could not agree more with everything you just said there. But Leighton, it's always a pleasure to have you on, man. Before I let you go, though, Vintage Breaks always has something awesome going on. So tell everybody, where they can find you if it's their first time hearing you on the show, and how they can get involved in everything.
Absolutely. So check out our website at vintagebreaks.com, where you can see hundreds of breaks listed at any one time from the 1950s all the way up to 2020. And what's really fun about our website, if you buy into just a couple breaks or a lot of breaks or anything in between, you have the ability to get into, sometimes we have 8, 10, or 12 different bonuses running. Everything is automated. So we have a bonus meter, which you can see at the top of our website. And then what's really fun, as a user, you have your own dashboard. So you can see all of the current and all of the past breaks that you bought into. Don't show your wife or significant other. And then, we also offer grading services with our friend Jared from Gem Mint.
Yes.
But then best of all, we oftentimes, every 4 or 6 weeks, we have a big event running. And so right now is no different. We have a huge event where we're giving away thousands of dollars in vintage cards, boxes, packs, and break credit. Right now is no different. We have an event that's running, and all the details can be found, of course, on our website at vintagebreaks.com, or we actually have a special event page with all the details of the event at event.vintagebreaks.com. And for those kind of like, hey, well, you know what? I bet you it costs a ton of money to get involved. Here's the deal. We have breaks for as low as $3. Shipping is included. So yes, do the math. If you buy a spot in a break for $3 and I ship it to you and it costs me $3, I make $0. I'm okay with that because we're building our community. If you have any inclination at all to check us out and to see that we're different, you will know the first night that you tune into Vintage Breaks that we are a community of card nerds, collectors, and lovers.
Yes.
In terms of in terms of our event, what's great is if you buy a spot on our website right now for as little as $3, of course, shipping's included, so we make no money there. And you're also included in a buy any spot promo, which ends on February 28th at 10 p.m. And you're going to be eligible for one of 25 prizes just for buying a single $3 spot from now until February 28th. And so, yes, if you spend $1,000, we have a VIP promo. If you spend $5,000, we have a platinum VIP promo that we're giving away crazy stuff. But we really cater to budgets of all sizes, and we're real proud of that. And we have a wonderful community, so please check us out. And just one more thing I wanted to add, Drew. If you are curious about the value of your cards, check out my other business, my other website, justcollect.com, where we offer people free appraisals right through the website, or you can email me personally, my first name, Leighton, Leighton, at justcollect.com.
Awesome. Well, Leighton, thanks so much for joining me, man, and can't wait to have you on again soon.
Thanks so much, Drew. Congrats on everything.
And once again, I'd like to thank my very special guest, Leighton Sheldon, for dropping by. If you guys haven't checked out Just Collect and Vintage Breaks, I highly recommend you checking it out. It's one of the best groups around, and you can always catch me on Vintage Breaks South during the week. But before we wrap up today's show, just want to touch on a couple other things. And first things first, gotta give a congratulations to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady for winning the Super Bowl. I got to admit, I was thinking this was going to be a Chiefs runaway. Tom showed once again why he's Tom Brady, and it's no question he's the GOAT now. But as I was watching the Super Bowl, I started looking at some comps. I was watching comps as the game happened, as players made good plays. And now I've looked at some comps, now that we're almost a week removed from the Super Bowl. And, a couple of really interesting things stuck out. One, obviously, Tom Brady finally getting the recognition he deserves. He's one of the top 2 or 3 probably most valued cards there is. The combination of him having so few, along with how hard they are to get graded and how many people toss them early, it really sticks out. But his cards are, they're reaching 7 figures almost very, very soon. And you should probably expect his bases to hit around 35-40 35 to 40K for base rookies. But the other thing that was very interesting is that positional players were getting a ton of love during the Super Bowl, but they're not dropping right now. And positional players, positional rookies during the year aren't dropping that much right now. And I really like that because it's showing me that maybe, just maybe, we're finally starting to value people other than quarterbacks. That would be absolutely wonderful for me if running backs, wide receivers, people like that finally started getting recognition in the card world and collectability in the card world, which I think you're going to see because, let's face it, there's 32 quarterbacks in the league. And the top ones, you're priced out of them. Unless you're really dropping some major money, you're priced out of most quarterbacks now, at least of the cards that you would ultimately really want, those holy grail cards. And so I think we really are at a turning point where you're going to start to see a lot of these positional players start to get the love they deserve. So congratulations to the Tampa Bay Patriots, I should call them, since they pulled in AB, Gronk, and Brady, and all of a sudden, boom, Super Bowl. Shocking. But congratulations to those guys. It's awesome. But, right now with the Super Bowl over, you got baseball about to start, basketball kicking into the playoffs. You have an opportunity right now to jump on some absolutely incredible deals. There are countless players right now that aren't getting the love that they deserve right now, and they aren't seeing these astronomical bumps like all these other players are. But when it comes playoff time, especially in basketball, they're going to soar. And that's obviously when you cash in if you're a short-term type of guy. Or this is when legends are made. If Jason Tatum, who's one of my guys that I'm all over because he's criminally underrated. If Jason Tatum runs through and has a good postseason, and let's say he wins a championship of all things, that he's cemented himself as one of the top tier guys in the league. Donovan Mitchell and the Jazz, one of the best teams in the league, and someone that I just put money on as a futures bet to win the NBA championship. They're that good. Donovan Mitchell has a strong showing. Even if they lose, his cards are going to soar. So take a look at these playoff fields and take a look at the stars around them. Look at the cards that aren't moving like a PSA 9 if it's not moving and the 10s are skyrocketing. Focus on that 9. There's a really good opportunity right now, right when the Super Bowl ends, because it's right before baseball and right before basketball. There is a prime opportunity to really snag some people for cheap that are going to play crucial roles in the playoffs, thus shooting their values. Their values are going to absolutely skyrocket. So it's an exciting time. I hate that football season's over, except for football seems to be holding value quite well in the off season now so far. I'm going to be interested to see how it does once we get closer to Trevor Lawrence and all those guys coming in. But it's nice to see some guys continuing to hold value. But y'all, that's going to wrap up episode 114 of Let Me Get That Potograph, and our very first on the iHeartMedia Spreaker Network. Thank you guys so much for listening to the show. We would not be on this network without you guys. It means the world to me that you guys listen to the show. This episode obviously dropping on a Saturday. We will have an episode out Wednesday, and then it'll be every single Wednesday from now on. We've got some amazing guests coming up, so make sure to check it out. I'd also like to thank my awesome sponsors, Retail Breaks, Vintage Breaks, and my brand new sponsor, Anarchy Sports Cards and Anarchy Breaks. Some absolutely incredible groups. Whether you're into retail, head on over to Retail Breaks. If you're into the vintage, the set randoms, the hits, the hit randoms, all that type of stuff, Vintage Breaks is the place to go. And then of course Anarchy Sports Cards for all of your bulk needs, your mixers, all types of stuff. But could not do this show without you guys. Thank you so much. But until next time, y'all, you guys know the deal. Keep ripping those packs, pulling those hits, and we'll talk to you next week. Peace.